Ladies and gentlemen, the latest balance patch is now live with the Terry patch. So we got Terry, we got new features, but of course we also have the long-awaited balance changes because Capcom did promise us more frequent balance updates, and I felt like we weren't going to get any for a while, but we did get some of this patch. So what I'm going to do in this video is cover all of the most relevant updates for each character, and I'm going to do it in increasing order of importance. So the least impactful changes will go first, leading up to the most impactful changes. And so you can go ahead and follow along with the video to see who the most impacted character is. Let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing I'm going to cover is actually not relevant to any one character. It's one of the most significant universal changes to the game. It has to do with drive reversal. So one of the big changes in the previous Season 2 balance patch was that drive reversal went from -8 on block to -6, trying to make it a little bit more safe on block to use. However, this kind of created a big imbalance between certain characters because some characters have 6-frame mediums and some characters don't have 6-frame mediums. So for a character like Ed, for example, his best punish used to start with the stand medium punish counter to stand heavy punch. Now after the patch, meterless, this is basically the best he's going to get. If you're going to optimize damage all the way, something like that is the most meterless damage Ed is going to get is 1720 right there, because you have to start the punish with a crouching light kick with 5-frame startup. However, in the balance patch, what they did to drive reversal is they increased the throw hurt box on recovery. So why is that significant? Well, normally, if you block drive reversal and then you wait a while, like you're out here, for example, your throw would whiff normally at this range. But with the changes on recovery, you can now throw at that range. And not only does that give you a new punish opportunity, it also is the max damage punish for a lot of characters now. if you're not spending any meter, throw is significantly more damage. So that did 2040, and the combo damage did 1720. So you actually do significantly more damage meterless by just throw punishing drive reversals now, which is a little weird. I feel like it's a little corny, but if you're not trying to spend any bar, you just get a clean punish. And also it does a full bar of drive meter damage as well. So this crouching light kick on punish counter does little to no drive gauge damage, but a throw on punish counter is a whole bar as well. So you do significantly more drive gauge damage and gets significantly more damage as well. So this kind of remedies the imbalance that characters had, because if you're like a Kuma, you could do medium to heavy and melt their life bar, but that was very limited. Not every character could do that. So I think this is a big buff to those characters who were more harmed by the drive reversal changes. So the next character's changes I'm going to cover are Kimberly. So Kimberly actually had only one relevant change for this patch, and that has to do with her bomb combos. So this bomb you can throw out, and it lets you get combos from throws or from strikes after. So generally you get some kind of Oki knockdown, and then you set up the bomb to cover your pressure, and you convert from the hit or the grab accordingly. And that originally had 20% damage scaling added to it, meaning after the bomb hits, if it was the initial starter for the combo, you immediately went from 100% damage scaling to 80%. So your follow-up would be scaled a little bit, so it wouldn't do a full amount of damage. But in this version, they changed that to be instead 10%. So if you throw the bomb down and say you go straight to the grab, see the follow-up now does 90% of its original damage. In the previous patch, it would do 80%. So if you did something, I don't know, like throw the bomb out, so this combo now does 3,204. I don't know how much it did previously, but it's going to do significantly more damage, or at least a notable amount more damage due to the changes in scaling. So I think that's a very good buff for Kimberly. It helps her require fewer interactions to get the W done when she's in her win condition. I don't think it's a crazy change to her meta, but it helps her close out games faster. The next set of most impactful changes goes to Guile. So Guile, he basically has two moves. He has Sonic Boom and he has Flash Kick. So you have to guess which one got changed here, because he had one significant change, and that has to do with, of course, his Sonic Booms. So they actually nerfed the meter building on his boom. So they tweaked the values according to the strength. So they reduced both the super meter build and the drive gauge gain from both these moves. So the light and heavy versions, they went from 600 super meter build on when used to 300. So you're actually able to see the meter build. So they nerfed this meter build on both the light and heavy. The medium one also had its meter build nerf from 600 to 450 instead. So the medium one actually does a little bit more meter build than the light or heavy versions now. And also they reduced the drive gauge gain by 500, so it's cut in half. So if Guile doesn't have all his drive meter, they actually significantly reduced how much drive gauge he builds back. So he's not just building meter like crazy when boom looping you anymore. So that definitely actually impacts his gameplay, because as we can see here, we have some examples. You know, these are some fancy Guile combos. Here we have an example from Suyuji, and any of the examples I use, I'm going to link in the description, the tweets and the content creators and players who put out these examples. So if we check this one out here, here is Suyuji. He's going for the previous patches Guile boom loop combos, and he starts with 2 bars of super meter. Goes for all the perfects, burns himself out, doing the full loop, and just below having that 3rd bar super, just below right there. So normally in the previous season, this loop would have built him that level 3, and this heavy kick here would have ended the combo into level 3. So he would normally build more than a full bar super meter in order to complete this loop and build a level 3. So that's definitely a decent nerf to Guile's game plan right there. It's what I would have said if he didn't immediately find a new route using medium sonic boom to do exactly that. So yes, his meter build is nerfed, but the adjustments are already out, modifying these loop combos using more medium booms. And so Guile can still build a whole bar of super meter during this combo to get the level 3 if you need to cash out. But his passive meter gain is definitely hurt, so he's going to have less access to super meter and not close out as many rounds as fast as possible. So nerfed, but definitely still can dish out damage and build meter in the process. So not the most impactful change. I think this is a bigger change than the Kimberly change, but Guile players, you will be okay. The next character with the most impactful changes, I'm giving it to Dee Jay here. So Dee Jay was severely nerfed in the Season 2 balance patch, but I guess Capcom felt a little bad about that and decided to give him a few buffs here. And one of the main ones is they gave him some utility for his jab, medium kick turret combo. A turret combo that is very rarely used. So what they did to this is they reduced the pushback on hit and block, really. But the idea being he's now left plus after this turret combo finishes and in range for some pressure. So you can see here I have the dummy walking away after getting hit. And after I finish this, Dee Jay is +3 on hit. And you can't walk out of the throw. So if you can't walk out of the throw, that also means you can't walk out of the low. So this turret combo starts from a light and you can kind of buffer it. And, you know, this means that he can immediately convert this turret combo into real pressure with a low throw mix. So definitely a buff to this turret combo because this really wasn't used. This didn't have too much of a use case otherwise. So they try to make this tool a little bit more relevant for Dee Jay. And the next tool that the Capcom seems to be really buffing and focusing on is the sway into overhead. So you might have noticed there that there was an interesting effect that happened when the overhead landed. And that's that punish counter ground bounce occurring right here. So if the overhead lands as a punish counter, you actually get juggles out of this thing. So if you're point blank, I believe you get the OD up kicks. You also meterlessly get MK Sobot. That also means that you're able to get like any of his supers. I don't have the rhythm. I don't even know how to do Dee Jay's level 2, but any super you want, you can get out of it. So definitely adding more utility to that. Not only that, it also works when hitting out of the air. So if you hit him out of the air normally, it causes a knockdown now. So it's kind of hard to always demo this. So it always causes this hard knockdown for Oki and pressure. But if it also punish counters out of the air, you also get that same ground bounce effect so that you're able to get combo conversions from it as well. So they're trying to give this move a bit more utility. If he goes over a normal, for example, and gets a punish counter, he's going to get actual damage and conversions out of it. So it definitely makes this move a lot more threatening to use. And if they try to jump away from the sway pressure as well, he can knock you down out of it and continue his pressure. So jumping away from Dee Jay also becomes less effective with this upgrade as well. So I think this is fairly a fairly decent punish or fairly decent buff for Dee Jay. But oh, the other thing about this, they also buffed how much drive gauge damage this does as well. I believe on block. This does nearly a bar of drive gauge damage. So this is really actually strong now. So he's going to be chipping away your drive meter pretty heavily. And, you know, this is plus on block like that. So not only is it plus, if you jump away from it, you can get ground bounce. And if you try to press a button and you whiff it and he punishes you for it, he's going to get a combo conversion. So, yeah, this is definitely buff for Dee Jay. They're trying to make this a relevant part of his toolkit. I think this will be very good and very annoying to harass with. So I think it's actually going to give him a decent amount of buffs. I'm not sure how relevant the turret combo will be. It seems pretty good for like meterless conversions to get the party started. But I definitely think Dee Jay is now buffed. No rhythm, no rhyme. I literally don't know how his level 2 works. It's not that I can't find the rhythm. It's I don't know what buttons you're supposed to press. And I only ever load up Dee Jay to demo balance changes. I've never played as Dee Jay. The character with the next most impactful changes is Ed. And, you know, I do hate when people assume they know what will be buffed and nerfed, but I think some people call this one correctly. They got him. They may have killed the dream. The level 2 now adds scaling to your meter building potential. However, it doesn't lock it out. In fact, I feel like Ed kind of got off scot-clean, like scot-free. I think he actually got buffed significantly. So let's talk about it. The level 2 now locks you to 80% of your meter building potential. So if you're doing a desync combo, you will build less super meter. But as you can see here, that builds 70% of a bar regardless. So, so yes, this would have been close to a full bar of super meter in the previous patch, but it's just 80% of your super meter build is nerfed when doing combos with the level 2. So any combo during the level 2 is locked at 80% scaling for your super meter build, but you're still building drive meter the whole time. They didn't take away the desync or dream combos, and they still do tons of damage, and you're still building drive meter. And you still build some super meter. So this really just prevents those situations where you literally build another level 2 in the next block string or combo. If you get the knockdown, then get like an empty jump conversion or something, you're not going to immediately build a level 2. There are some egregious examples of that going around, but this is still really good. Like there's no reason to not do the level 2 desyncs at all. You're building tons of drive meter, tons of corner carry. You're still building tons of super meter in my opinion. So I think this is not bad at all. This is still extremely strong, so I think Ed players will continue to go for the Dream Combo and desyncs. And beyond that, Ed definitely got significant buffs. So he had 2 buffs that work in tandem together. So they gave him extra extra active frames on the jump heavy punch. This went from 4 to 5 active frames. And the only thing I can really think of is sometimes timing his safe jumps were pretty tight because you'd have to press the heavy punch extremely late in order to have the last active frame actually cover when the opponent got up. So oftentimes you could have a situation where you go for the safe jump and you just whiffed the jump in. That was very common to have happen. So they gave him an extra active frame on the jump heavy punch to make it a little bit easier to go for the safe jump pressure. And along with that, they made it so that his stand heavy kick is now +4 instead of +5. +4 instead of +3 on block, which increases his frame trap potential after. And you know, the heavy kick, it's only really used in block strings from the safe jump because it whiffs on crouchers. So when people block the safe jump in meaty, it actually forces them to be standing. So it will actually, oh, see, even there I still whiffed the safe jump. It'll actually force them to block even if they're set to crouch. So you see there, even though the dummy is set to crouch, they're blocking the safe jump, and their standing hurt box remains for that stand heavy kick in a block string that actually connect. So that's really powerful because that means that you get better frame traps if they try to press after that. So this just cleanly frame traps now a stand medium. Before it would trade with the jab, and for some characters you would get good trade combos, but for other characters you couldn't get the trade combo. So now, and you can just actually convert this to full combos. So his pressure after safe jumps has been definitely improved. And the next buff Ed has is increased juggle potential from his jump heavy kick. Jump heavy kick is his air-to-air button that actually puts him into a juggle state. And this move was okay, but it's a heavy, so it's slower. And it was hard to meet people in the air and get combo follow-ups. Often you would just hit them in the air, then just be able to drive rush in for pressure if you caught them like jumping over your head or something. But they made it so that not only do they get knocked back more, but Ed will potentially fall faster if he hits them towards the peak of the jump arc. He actually falls down a lot faster. So that can lead to situations where you can actually get air-to-air combos if you're actually really on point. It's a little difficult to still get air-to-airs combo conversions when you're jumping away, but if you're really ready for them, you can meet them in the air and potentially get things like a blitz or a DP. Like, this is technically possible, especially if you jump towards them. So it gives you a bit more options, and that actually lets you keep the corner in these kind of situations. Because normally if you were to walk back, it'd be kind of hard to always get the DP at that angle. So it gives you another option that you can potentially combo from. But where this really shines is in these kind of situations. So Ed does have good anti-air damage because he could do things with his DP, like juggle into the Super Art 2, which is a really reliable and really strong conversion. But it's pretty scaled, right? Like, once you land this, you're not getting too much damage from that 2,810 damage from this conversion. However, we have new options now. So, yeah, if you're ready for it, you can react now to jump-ins and do heavy kick into level 2, and this doesn't scale your combo at all. So you get extremely strong conversions that do way more damage than doing it from a DP, and you can also extend it with a ton of drive rushes and juggle extensions. Like, there's just a lot of juggle potential when starting with the heavy kick instead of DP. So your damage goes from something like 2,800 max to potentially being over 4K with tons of extensions. So it's definitely worth it to see if you can look for the air-to-air jump heavy kick now, because you just get significantly more reward if you were to land this instead. And you can keep it simple and cut your combo short if you want to as well. But there's the potential to keep extending your combos with increased damage is really good for Ed in this situation. So the next buff for Ed, they actually added more pushback to Light Punch Blitz when your opponent is in the corner. So he'll actually be pushed back a little bit there, as you can see him gliding backwards a tiny amount. Mid-screen, it's not going to have as much pushback, but in the corner here, you see there's a tiny amount of pushback here, which means there's potential for doing things like this, like these spaced out spacing traps, where you get a bit more pushback to avoid options from certain characters. However, that doesn't mean he's going to get away scot-free. A lot of characters still have buttons that will punish. Like Luke's jab is really good, so it'll punish. But for other characters, they can potentially miss their fastest punish. They might have to have a 5-frame ready. So I just think it makes these potential spacing traps a little bit more tricky to deal with, but still punishable by most of the cast. And the last minor change Ed had, for some reason, they gave him an extra frame or two, or I guess a single frame to confirm combos from the punish counter light flicker before they hit the ground. Sometimes people would get the light flicker and they just wouldn't have time to recognize what was going on and get a conversion from it. So they try to make this a little bit more consistent for players. So you can potentially do other conversions like going into heavy punch a bit more easily. So this is just kind of almost like a quality of life change for Ed players. But yeah, now you'll miss these combo opportunities a little bit less often. So overall, I feel like the fact that Ed did not get severely nerfed for his level 2 and actually got some decent buffs, especially with his plus frames on heavy kick and the air-to-air heavy kick option, I think this is a fairly impactful change. And I think Ed is actually overall buffed. All right, the character with the next set of most impactful changes is Luke. I guess Capcom felt bad about how many Luke players were dropping him cold turkey after Season 2. So they actually gave Luke some buffs, which is so surprising to see. Well, I guess them walking back all the nerfs is a little surprising. But the fact that Luke is getting buffed, he's been in this position for years now where he just keeps getting buffed even when he's the best in the game. The nerfs definitely hit him very hard in the meta after season 2. So they wanted to make sure that their poster boy is still a little bit relevant. So they gave him some new changes to compensate for the other buffs or the other nerfs that he had received. So one of them, for example, is the reduced pushback on his crouching light kick and crouching light punch. So what does this mean? So if they block your crouching light punch, for example, and start walking away, the reduced pushback on these moves allows this sort of sequence to be very consistent. So you can start the jab, and normally, you know, a potential throw could come here from a tick throw situation. But if you instead go to crouching light kick and the crouching jab, it's very likely to be consistent and connect in this situation. So they won't walk out of it, make your crouching light punch whiff, and then causing your combo to drop. So that's a really powerful sort of string to have to lock people down and prevent them from jumping out of your pressure or walking away. So definitely makes his strike or throw game a lot more efficient and consistent. So that's a pretty decent buff for Luke right there. The other change he got, also related to pushback changes, reduced pushback on crouching medium punch on hit. That allows for things like the link to stand light kick to be more consistent as well, for this to connect at more ranges so that he can more consistently combo. It'll be less likely that stand light kick won't actually connect. So more consistency for his combo conversions in a lot more situations. It can also help improve his counter hit conversions. So if he's going for a counter hit conversion and they happen to, you know, mash on his plus frames, you can get more consistent conversions out of that as well. So if you get something like this, it's more consistent for him to go, or like a trade combo from driver's jab. It can help improve his combo ability here. That does work, right? Oh. Okay, I meant to say this. So it can also help improve his counter hit, or rather trade combo conversions from something like this to get the standing light kick as well. So you'll have to go into the OD there. But more consistent conversions, including into stand light punch also on the counter hit drive rush medium to medium, which ties into his next buff. They actually buffed this target combo. So they had two changes to this target combo, the light punch, medium punch, heavy punch target combo, and that is to both the scaling and the damage of the final hit. So originally, after the light punch, medium punch, there was more scaling onto the combo. So this means conversions into this will actually not scale as hard into their later hits, because, you know, you can cancel this also into special moves. But they also added more damage onto the final hit as well. So if you get a counter hit crouching medium punch, it seems like now the meterless combo conversion that is optimal is to go into the standing light punch target combo. So I'm not a Luke main, so I can't verify that for sure. But this combo does significantly more damage now, with like 300 more damage on the final hit. So helps his meterless damage be a little bit more deadly by buffing the damage and utility on the standing light punch combo. So they made Luke better and easier. Yeah, I think they made Luke a little bit easier to use. I think they made it so that his pressure is more consistent from his light confirms, leaves him closer as well to get better throw pressure, and his basic B&Bs without meters do a little bit more damage. So stuff to compensate for all the scaling nerfs to the crouching medium punch and the lack of damage that he has from other situations. So I think they just try to make him a little bit better. So I think this will... I put this as more impactful than other changes because I think Luke just needed a little bit of a push in the right direction to make him a little bit more relevant. So I think these changes will actually matter in the meta. The next character with the most impactful changes is going to be Dhalsim. I feel like Dhalsim's had nothing for so long and has been so irrelevant for so long. It might be surprising to see him this late in this list, but I think he got some really interesting changes this patch. So one of the main changes is that they changed the hit advantage for stand heavy kick for Dhalsim. So this move now has an additional like 3 frames of hit stun on it, so that way you can get better combo conversions. And so I'm not a Dhalsim main. I'm gonna defer here to Breezy Man, top level NA Dhalsim. He has also done a bunch of content on Dhalsim, so I'll link his stuff in the description. But he shows an example here of why this is so dangerous. So here he is in a fireball battle with Ryu, and once he gets the fireball clash, you can see he gets a brand new combo. So the fireball clash occurs here. He gets drive rush roundhouse here with the punish counter. So the buff allows this cancel into the back medium kick. So this was unable to combo a previous patch, but now with the additional hit stun, when you cancel to the teleport on the punish counter, you can actually get this combo. So that means in fireball battles, Dhalsim can get significantly better punishes and more damage if he reads your fireball pattern and punishes you like Breezy Man demonstrates here. So that definitely makes Dhalsim a lot more scary to deal with in these fireball battles for sure. And while that change is cool, I feel like the most significant change has come in the form of how they've completely reworked Dhalsim's level 1. So the first thing they did is they made this go from -15 to -10 on block, kind of taking a cue there from Dee Jay, where they made his level 1 significantly more safe on block as well. Meaning in Burnout, this is only going to be -6 on block. And let's remember that this is Dhalsim. He can do supers from, you know, far away, and -10 at this range is safe versus most of the cast, especially if they don't have resources like a level 1 with Luke, for example. They're not going to be able to punish this even without Burnout. Add Burnout on top of that, and this is definitely a safe super to use on block, which is very, like, this is a new thing in the world of Street Fighter. But if you're paying attention to the life bars, you might notice something interesting. It's doing gray damage, right? What is going on here? Look how much gray damage this does. They went a really interesting direction with Dhalsim Super Art 1 and made it essentially operate kind of like how his V-Trigger 1 operated in Street Fighter 5, where, you know, you lay the carpet down and it does gray damage to you, and the next hit will actually cash out on the damage. So if you land this and then you drive rush at them, for example, and they try to parry and you get a punish counter throw, look how much damage this throw does, right? And that's safe. And also keep in mind, this is doing significantly more damage to the drive meter on block. So look at both the life bar and the drive meter. This does pretty much, I think it's a little bit more than half a bar drive meter on block. It's doing more drive gauge damage on block than it would do on hit. And it's safe. So imagine, if you will, you know, they're near burnout, and you start harassing them with this. You just start cashing out. And then you get the stun. It's really, really interesting what they're doing with this. Because, you know, Dhalsim, you know, he definitely had utility with his supers, but his level 1 isn't invincible, so he can't really use it to escape DI situations or things like that. But it's a really interesting idea, because, like, if this is blocked, Luke cannot punish this. The only way he can punish this is with level 1. But if he does something like, say, a stand heavy punch here, it's just going to whiff, and you're going to punish it in return. So people are going to attempt to punish this move and get punished for that, right? So he's going to be a burnout and a gray damage machine. Like, it's going to be really interesting to see this in real matches. So be careful with your punishes on Dhalsim. I think this is a very unique change to Dhalsim. I think they're giving him a unique mechanic. It might be very annoying to get chipped out and have a ton of gray damage added. And remember, once you have that gray damage racked up, he just needs one little button to cash out on that gray damage. Safe on block, doing tons of drive gauge chip. I think this is a very impactful change and might actually help out Dhalsim a little bit in the meta. He still doesn't have low 4 drive rush, so he still has to deal with all that. But he's getting tools to make him a little bit more unique in this game. You thought you saw the last of this guy? The next character, the most impactful changes is, yes, you see him right there on your screen, JP. He's back. It's pretty interesting how I think Capcom felt like they overcorrected with the nerfs to Luke and JP. And they gave Luke a few decent buffs, but they actually gave JP a lot. So we'll go ahead and get the first one out of the way, which is, I don't know, they're trying to make this a thing. You know, the command grab, one of the changes, one of the buffs they gave to compensate for all the nerfs to amnesia and anti-airs and damage that they had last patch was they made it so that you can combo into his command grab, right? So what they did now is they changed the scaling when you actually get combos into his command grab. So instead of being 25% scaling, it goes to 20% scaling. So you can really see that shine when you do something like crouching heavy punch on punish counter into command grab. So this is two basically unscaled big chunks of damage, 3,300 damage on that, which is a lot. I mean, it's not better than doing like anything else that I can see. It feels like you should probably do like any other combo and it will most likely do more damage. But it's pretty good. Like, I think if you just go into the heavy swipe and then spend 2 bars like that, you get more damage. So I'm not exactly sure why you would ever do a combo into the OD command grab intentionally, but maybe with certain block strings, you can just coincidentally get it. So yeah, that does a chunk of change right there now. So that's one of the weird changes they gave him for sure. But the big one, it's back. They brought back the anti-air. So this move was nerfed pretty heavily in the last patch. What they did to it is they got rid of all of the upper body invincibility on the move. So what would happen is a lot of the time, this anti-air would end up both trading or losing outright to good jump-ins. So now what they did is they gave him the anti-air invincibility on his arm hitbox on the second active frame till the end. So the first active frame doesn't have any upper body invincibility, but it will get upper body invincibility on the later active frames to just make it a much more reliable and consistent anti-air. And I feel like that was tied with the biggest nerf for JP in the last patch. The amnesia nerf obviously made his defense significantly weaker. His amnesia would just did too much damage if it landed, so that was fair. But adding the anti-air nerf on top of it meant like he was getting kind of disrespected by a lot of people and was just a lot more inconsistent in play. A zoner with an anti-air that would randomly lose is generally not a favored pick for a lot of people. So I think this is what actually caused a lot of people to drop the character, this move losing a lot. So they didn't bring it back to its complete former glory, but they made it much more reliable and a very strong anti-air once again. But, you know, it doesn't end there. They kept buffing him. He has a bunch of really unique buffs, such as having more plus frames on stand MK. This is now +3 on hits, which allows him to do things like combo stand medium kick into a spike. Now, I don't have any advanced combos with this, but this will lead to different combo conversions mid-screen. You know, JP actually has a ton of sauce. So this is going to lead to new combo conversions with other setups on top of it. You know, something like this maybe. You can set up. Who knows? People will be figuring this out in due time. I'm sure you can get lots of interesting conversions and meaty knockdown setups. So his combo potential has increased in that way. But that's not all. They also added additional juggles with the forward heavy kick, which does definitely give him new combos. So for example, in the corner, this used to be your basic B&B wall splat with DI combo. You would go straight into the towards heavy kick, but now you can just add a crouching medium punch in front of it and you still get both hits of the forward heavy kick for increased damage potential, which is really interesting. But not only that, that sort of trend continues because they added the additional juggle points. It increases the danger that you're in when dealing with a lot of his pressure that already exists in the game. So after forward throw, for example, it was very common to do a meaty spike here because you're left +1 on block, so they can't jab after. And if they got hit, you would of course get a combo. And you would do something like that, set up the portal 2960 and call it a day. But now, instead of having to go straight from the spike to stand heavy to continue the juggle, you can go towards heavy kick, which does significantly more damage. This is a huge damage buff. And in fact, you know, say you get thrown and you don't respect the pressure here. That's like 60% of your life gone. So be wary of the meaty spike from JP. There's going to also be tons of new combo routes utilizing the increased juggle potential towards heavy kick. People are already messing with new stun routes and new combos. So he had a lot of his juggle potential hurt last patch. but this makes it so from common situations, you for sure can get more damage with towards heavy kick used earlier in your combos, and potentially more niche optimal scenarios for really obscure setups and combos in the future. And also, like I said, new combos with the stand medium kick canceling the spike. So they both patched up his main weakness of anti-airs and gave him more sauce and more damage conversions from common and obscure situations. So I think JP is kind of a big winner of this patch. His amnesia is still significantly nerfed, but that's pretty fair. But I feel like this is actually enough to get more players to go back to playing JP pretty consistently, especially with the anti-air and new tools to play with. So this is a very impactful change, I think, from the patch. I think this is a more fair change. I don't even know if he needed all the combos and the damage. Just the fact that his anti-air got nerfed, I think, was a really weird decision in the first place. And that caused pretty much everybody, including myself, to be like, well, JP's gone. Like, no one wants to play a character whose anti-air loses when you're a slow walk speed zoner, right? No matter how obnoxious his zoning may be. So he might be back. So if you forgot the JP matchup, you know, time to learn your anti-amnesia tech, get your offense going, because I think JP might be back. Okay, it's time. I feel like a lot of you clicking on this video are probably waiting for this moment. And if you weren't already aware, seeing Zangief this late in the video, as I go to the most impactful changes one by one, you probably can piece together that it's probably not good news for you if you are a Zangief main. So what did they change about Zangief? Well, he got a full laundry list of buffs last patch, including just altering the stats for pretty much all of his moves to do a lot more drive meter damage and, you know, a lot more plus frames in a lot of situations. So most of that is still intact. He's still doing a ton of drive gauge damage and really harassing and eliminating your drive bar when he gets in. However, there are two distinct changes in this patch. One of them, which is undoing a big change that happened last patch, which I think personally makes a lot of sense, and it has to do with the knee. So what do they do to the knee? They essentially reverted the knee to the previous patch, because at worst last patch rather, for the past couple months, this was -3 on block, even when point blank, meaning it was always safe no matter what. Now it's back to -4. It is punishable on block. So they reverted that change that made this, you know, safe on block. It is -4 now instead of -3. So if you drive rush point blank, it's only +0. And if you misspace it, it is negative. However, you know, if you still space it out appropriately, it's still plus on block. These setups still do exist. So you're still able to utilize it in this way if you space it correctly. And, you know, it still has its utility, right? It's still able to go over things like lows. So, you know, they try to take their turn back. You can go over lows, get combos, right? Still has all of that. So I don't think the -4 to -3 nerf is that big of a deal. However, that's not all they did. That is not all they did. You see, they altered the way the trajectory and the center of mass, essentially, of Zangief's hurtbox is located on this move. It used to be a lot further back. So when you did things like this, and they would press jab after, you would essentially cause these mids to whiff. So they adjusted that. They also made the hurtbox itself entirely move forward on the second frame and later, meaning any move that has a hitbox high enough. So we saw here that the crouching medium kick in this situation, Zangief can go right over it, no problem, right? But crouching light punch stuffs it clean. And it's not just crouching light punch, you know, it'll be any kind of move hitting in that range, including things like Luke's crouching medium punch, will work just the same. It'll stuff it just as easily. So the utility of doing strings into knee has been significantly nerfed, and will lose to preemptive mashing much more easily. But, you know, it still has utility for beating lows. I think this is the biggest nerf to knee. I think the knee going from -4 to -3, you should be punished if you do this move too close. I'm sorry, you should be punished, right? That makes sense to me. However, this significantly hurts the usability of the knee. Of course, there's still counterplay. Like, Zangief players can come up with stuff. You can't just always preemptively mash. you can get punished for that. So it's not the end of the world here, but this is definitely a significant nerf to the ability to spam this move and spam strings that people didn't know the counterplay to very well. However, unlike the last change, where I do think there's still counterplay, the next change, there's nothing you can do about it as a Zangief player, and that is the fact that they gave your headbutt one more frame of advantage. Yes, instead of being +7 like it was last patch, which allowed the combo into Hell Stab, which was very much welcomed by Zangief mains, it's now +8, so you can do things like going and crouching medium punch, which means no more dropping Hell Stab into level 2. This combo caused a lot of grief for a lot of players, including world-class players like Itazan. You know, the Hell Stab is down forward medium, which can be a little awkward while trying to do a double quarter circle forward. So instead, you can do a much more easier and safe crouching medium punch, which is 8 frame startup, sacrificing some damage because Hell Stab is 800 damage, crouching medium punch is 700 instead. It also allows things like Dry Rush Heavy Punch Headbutt is now +12, which means you can do things like this, get the Dry Rush Heavy Headbutt into the sweep, and then go for Oki. You know, it lets you get in and maintain more pressure. So you have better ways to get better Oki with that change as well. However, of course, it can't all be good news. Here, let me just demonstrate. Now, you may have noticed something about that combo. You may have noticed that it did nothing. It did nothing, it tickled. While there was a lot of dry brush cancels in that combo to crank up the scaling, the main culprit now is the headbutt itself, which adds an initial 25% scaling. And then if it happens in a combo, it does 20% scaling, meaning using multiple headbutts in a combo instantly turns your combo to do crap damage. Like, his punish damage is significantly nerfed. Any punishes starting with this move, see, you go from 100% damage scaling, as you can see there in the damage counter, to immediately to 75% on the next hit. So normally this would be, I believe, 80% if I remember correctly, or maybe it was 90% even. Maybe it didn't even do any scaling like that. So your next hits will immediately do significantly less damage, which means, like, even basic combos, sometimes it might be better to just avoid doing the headbutt in some situations. So maybe not those combos, but in a lot of situations, you're kind of better off avoiding headbutt as much as possible. Like, doing a punish like that on a DP, significantly more damage than doing this, for example. So his main combo damage is very nerfed. I think we have an example of that here from Lord Javits as well. Zangief's max damage with full resources went from 6.9k to 6.3k damage. So it's a whole 600 damage less on these optimal punishes. So he still gets pretty good damage, but with everything including CA, it's a whole 300 damage shaved off. And from his average interactions starting from headbutt, he's always going to do a little bit less damage on hit. So still can do big damage, but losing 600 on a combo conversion is actually kind of big. So in general, I don't think the trade-off of the plus frames for the easier combos is actually good for Zangief. They gave him something in return to make it so that he can get easier combos with the crouching medium punch and also better Oki, but he's definitely taking a hit. I still think he's going to be very, very good, but you won't immediately die if you get hit by a headbutt in this version of the game. The last and most impactful character change I have here is with M. Bison. And it's some big stuff right here. So what did they do to M. Bison? Well, Scissors has decreased pushback. This move was extremely spammable, harassable, led to way too much reward on hit, on counter hit, and on punish counter, and was often able to be used back to back. So what they did is they reduced the amount of pushback on the move, so he's left closer to you after you block it. But they also reduced the hurt box. So kind of a bizarre change. It's like they slightly reduced the pushback, but they also at the same time reduced the hurt box on it. So what does this actually mean? This was very confusing to read in the patch if you weren't paying attention too much to the details. Essentially, nothing changed about how punishable these scissors are. Nothing changed. However, because he's left closer after, if you do a move that is not a punish, like maybe like a crouching medium punch, for example, instead of a crouching light punch, you're more able to reach him and put him in blocks and prevent him from taking his turn back, right? So that's kind of the main difference here, is that you're able to make sure you can put him into block stun a little bit more effectively. Because a common thing that Bison would do is this. You try to take your turn back, and he would just do crouching medium punch, or just do scissors again and get a punish counter. Now, it's slightly easier to stuff him from doing it again, right? So no new punishes on this move, nothing like that. Any punishes you had previously should still work the same, but it's more easier to like stop him from spamming it over and over. But it's not that much easier because as you see there, you're definitely still able to do that. Here's a good demonstration. Since it's hard to really know, Galantier actually had both patches here side by side. So here's kind of a demo of what this actually implies. So this is the previous patch, him doing scissors to crouching medium punch. And as you can see there, Rashid's crouching medium kick actually failed to take the turn back. So he was punish countered by the buffered crouching medium punch there. And here's the same situation in the latest patch. Same idea, but this time he's close enough so that when he tries to preemptively buffer, Rashid's crouching medium kick will actually stuff him on the preemptive buffer. So that's the intention with this change, but it's nothing. So the real reason why I put him last as the most impactful change here is because he did not get nerfed. Bison is still running around doing Bison things. And this category really isn't just Bison. It's characters like Akuma. It's characters like especially Rashid. Maybe even Cammy you can throw in there. Ken. These characters that are considered the most problematic characters in the meta are still problems. Rashid literally had no changes. I am flabbergasted that they didn't even consider nerfing his level 2 in any way, shape, or form. So Bison, he did not get nerfed. This is a slap on the wrist. This guy's still doing 10,000 damage with a punish counter Psycho Crusher when you're bombed up and just sealing games left and right. So all those characters are the most impactful changes because they are not changed and they will be dominating the meta going forward. Very strange decision, I feel like, on Capcom's part. It also just feels like they're very behind, right? A lot of these patch changes were reactionary to their nerfs that they gave to the mainstays in the previous season's meta, like Luke and JP. So it feels reactionary to like the first month of the new patch, and it feels like they're behind the time. So I definitely get the impression that they're definitely delayed in terms of responding to what the community feels the game needs. And they also, they definitely favor DLC characters, it seems like, as well. Let the DLC run rampant. They even gave Ed buffs, which is very strange to me. I don't obviously biased. I don't think Ed really needs to get nerfed. I think he is one of the more complex top tier characters. And isn't as dominant as, say, a Rashid is. I think Rashid's very complex, but he's a little bit too dominant, and level 2 for Rashid has too little counterplay. Ed, I think, is very, very good in top tier, but I don't think he runs things like Bison does, where Bison is running the show at every level of gameplay. So, I don't know. I feel like the patch is a little strange. But the most impactful changes are them not nerfing the top tiers in this game. And that's all I have for covering the balance changes for the Terry update. Let me know what you think about this balance update and what you think the most impactful changes are, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.